One last snippet. The rest you'll have to wait when my next book comes out. So this is about my ex-wife Karina. Like I said, I'm allowed to raise away in this. When my mother passed away in 2023, year 23 March. I was still with my wife, living with her and her mother in her mother's bungalow, and I didn't answer the phone because I didn't recognise the number, as I had no contact with anyone in my family at that point. So my sister rang Karina, and Karina was in work. She came home to tell me. She left work early and came home and told me. She told me over the phone first, and then she came over home early. And I was really like numb, in shock, just couldn't function. And we ended up going up to see my family up there. It wasn't easy. Anyway, when it came to going up in the car, she had this song on, Spirit in the Sky. That's where I'm gonna go when I die. And I was like sitting there already in shock. But she said, why didn't you just turn it over then? I was grieving, I was in shock, just found out my mother passed away. And she had that song on. Who does that? Anyway, when it came to the chapel arrest, a couple of weeks later, I went up to see her, and that was the first time I seen my mother in 3 years. Karina held me for a couple of seconds while I cried, and then I walked over to the coffin, and she was standing there, and she said, oh, look at our fingers, because of discoloration, and sorry if it's triggering. It is a trigger warning. And she said, oh, I'm going to go out and have a puff on my vape, because we were vaping at that point. So she went outside. So while I was there, I was listening to my mother's playlist that I made. I put a lovely letter in there, and it was the first time I've seen my mother in 3 years. I had to see her like that. We made peace. I definitely felt God around me, and I felt my mother around me in spirit, and I felt great for that. So anyway, 10 minutes later, Karina comes back in, and she sits down on a chair, and I'm still like having time with my mother, and she sits there, she said, I couldn't get my vape to work, see? And she was talking to me, and I was looking at her like, huh? I couldn't get my vape to work, but I figured it out in the end, she said. And she was looking at my mother's back of her hair. Oh, look, it's look at that. Where she hit her head, it was blood there. I was in a state. So when we left and we saw my sister, we were feeling a bit better now, and she told my sister that blood behind her head was still in her hair, and and like she had to upset people. Like she's nasty. Like my sister's grieving the worst because she had more of a bond with my mother, and they were very, very close. And being that close, there are times they would argue, but they always made up, and I felt really bad because I couldn't see what was going on, and I wasn't all there, but I just knew that I felt at peace with my mother. But remembering all these memories now is just triggering and upsetting to think that Karina could be like that. And I couldn't kiss my mother on the forehead because she was quite high up, and I'm shorty, so I put my like that to my hand, and then I put it on her forehead, and so I don't have any nightmares, which I haven't. And I will always say she looked more peace there than she's ever looked at peace in her life. I know my mother's been through it as well, mind, You know, if you read the first part of my life story, which I doubt you haven't, you'll know what my mother's been through. So I'm not giving anything away. I want people to read my books, but I'm sharing. You know, I'm sharing my snippets of my life, so people are aware, and also know that what my book's going to be like is a mixture of all different situations that I've been in throughout my adult life as well as my childhood. You know, two books. Second book be out soon now. I'll be getting back into it once the summer ends a bit because I'm too warm to concentrate on writing. So, but I wanted to share that. This is what Karina's like. And I said, oh, I wanted the tattoo on my mother's tattoo that she had on her hand. And Karina took a photo of her hand. And then she was showing our ex-friends, Sam and Dylan Brace, the tattoo. And he said, oh, he'll sketch it. But by May, I left because I couldn't deal with Karina anymore. And I just needed to be there for my dad and my sisters, so I thought. I don't know why I was there for my dad. I just felt like this one last time, like, see if he has really changed and care for him, as he's got a lot of issues, you know. He's got a lot of heart issues and that. But that wasn't the best environment, let me tell you. Whew. But I'm not going to get into too much about that, because that's going to be in my next book. So, but you know, it's made me who I am today, that's for sure. And I've come along like leaps and bounds, like, it's just crazy. But yeah, just a little snippet here and there, and why not, innit? Why not?